Sometimes, the most surprising moments happen when you least expect them, and you never know what a simple conversation on the street could lead to. Maria Johnson, a 27-year-old janitor, had long been used to the quiet and steady rhythm of her job. Working in downtown office buildings, she spent her days cleaning floors, emptying trash, and making sure everything was in order before the workday began. It wasn't glamorous, but Maria didn't mind. She found peace in the routine, in knowing her work was important, even if most people didn't notice her. Follow the whole story and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment to let us know where you are watching the video. It motivates us to share more impactful stories. As a Black woman in a job many people overlooked, Maria was accustomed to being invisible. She didn't mind. She preferred it that way, living a life where she wasn't the center of attention. It was enough for her to do her job well and keep to herself. The hustle and bustle of the city didn't faze her. She walked its streets every day with a sense of purpose, her eyes mostly on the ground, lost in thought. On one chilly autumn morning, as Maria made her way to work, something caught her eye. A sleek black car rolled up beside the curb, and the door opened. The figure stepping out was instantly recognizable. Elon Musk? Maria froze for a second, her heart skipping a beat. She had seen him plenty of times on TV, always in the news, making headlines with his companies and innovations. But seeing him in person, on this street, like an ordinary person, was a different story entirely. She took a deep breath, unsure of what to do. She had been walking with her head down, just focused on getting to work, but now here he was, standing right in front of her. There were no bodyguards, no fans, just Elon Musk on a quiet street corner. He looked casual, tall, dressed simply, with a hint of weariness in his eyes, as though he was trying to blend in with the city's pulse. Before she could decide what to do next, Elon looked up and caught her gaze. He smiled, a friendly, unguarded smile, and nodded at her. "Hey there," he said casually. "I'm actually looking for a good coffee spot around here. Know anywhere nearby?" Maria's heart raced. She had never imagined she would be speaking to someone like him, much less offering advice. But she quickly composed herself and gave a small, polite smile. "There's a cafe just down the street," she said, pointing in the direction of Poppy's Cafe, a cozy little spot she often passed on her way to work. "It's called Poppy's. It's a good place." Elon smiled back, his face lighting up with appreciation. "Thanks. I'll check it out," he said. "I'm in the mood for something quiet today." Maria nodded, still in shock that she had just helped Elon Musk find a cafe. As he turned to walk away, she couldn't help but watch him for a moment longer. Her thoughts were spinning. Was this really happening? Was she really speaking to one of the wealthiest and most famous men in the world? But before she could dwell on it too much, she shook herself out of her thoughts and continued on her way to the building where she worked that day. Little did Maria know, that brief encounter would set off a chain of events that would change her life forever. The morning passed quickly as Maria focused on her work, but the encounter with Elon Musk kept playing over and over in her mind. She couldn't help but replay their brief exchange in her head, imagining all the ways it could have gone differently. What if she had said something else? What if she had asked for a photo or tried to talk to him more? But no, she had stuck to what felt natural, giving directions to a cafe, nothing more. She was used to the quiet, predictable pace of her life. But now, as the day wore on, she found herself questioning everything. It felt as though her life had been just one steady routine, never changing, always the same. The thought of a future outside of this monotonous cycle seemed far-fetched. She had dreams, of course. Who didn't? But they felt distant and impractical, like things that happened to other people, not her. By lunchtime, Maria had finished cleaning the building's floors and had moved on to wiping down the desks. She was deep in thought, mopping the hallway, when her phone buzzed in her pocket. Pulling it out, she saw a notification from her social media account. There, at the top of the feed, was an article titled, "Elon Musk spotted in local cafe. What's he doing in town?" She clicked on the link, scrolling through the article, but her heart nearly stopped when she saw a familiar face in the photos. There, in the background of one of the pictures, was Maria, just a blur of her face as she stood nearby while Elon Musk chatted with the barista at Poppy's Cafe. It seemed that the sight of Elon Musk in the cafe had made news. Her brief encounter with him had made it into the local media, and now people were speculating about why he was in town. She didn't think much of it at first, but something about the way they described the encounter felt strange. They must have snapped that picture while I was walking by, Maria thought, looking over the caption. But why would they even notice me? That's when the realization hit her. She was now part of the story, even if it was just a background detail. Her life, her quiet, unnoticed life, had been subtly connected to something bigger. She had never imagined that a random moment, a simple interaction, could bring her into the spotlight, even if just for a second. As the rest of the afternoon passed by, Maria couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. She finished her shift and headed home, but she couldn't focus on anything. Her mind kept drifting back to the media coverage. Was she a part of something bigger now? When she arrived home, Maria tossed her keys onto the counter and slumped onto the couch, feeling overwhelmed. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a text message. It was from her best friend, Tasha. "Girl, did you see the news? Elon Musk is in our town, and now they're saying you were at the cafe with him. What's going on?" Maria stared at the message, unsure of what to say. She quickly typed back, "I don't know. I just gave him directions to a cafe. That's it." Tasha's response came quickly. "Still, that's crazy. What if this leads to something? Maybe you'll get noticed by someone important." Maria smiled to herself. Tasha was always the optimistic one. Maria, on the other hand, was more realistic. Sure, it was a big coincidence, but it wasn't like Elon Musk was going to call her up and offer her a job, right? But as the night went on, Maria couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to take a turn she hadn't anticipated. The next morning, Maria woke up feeling a little different. She wasn't sure if it was because of the media attention from the day before or if it was something else entirely, but she couldn't shake the strange feeling of anticipation. She had always been the type to get up, go to work, and stay out of the spotlight, but now it seemed as though the world was suddenly paying attention, at least in her small corner of it. She quickly got dressed in her usual work clothes, a worn pair of jeans, an old hoodie, and sneakers that had seen better days. Maria didn't mind. She wasn't in the business of impressing anyone. She grabbed her lunch, tucked her phone into her pocket, and left her small apartment, locking the door behind her. The morning chill hit her as she stepped outside, but it didn't feel as cold as it usually did. As she walked to her first job of the day, her phone buzzed again. At first, she ignored it, but after the third notification, curiosity got the better of her, and she pulled it out. It was a number she didn't recognize. Maria hesitated, wondering if it was a robocall or a scam, but something told her to pick up anyway. "Hello? Hi, is this Maria Johnson?" A deep, familiar voice answered. It was a voice that made her heart skip a beat. Yes, this is Maria," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "This is Elon Musk," the voice continued, calm and collected, as though this was the most normal thing in the world. "We met yesterday on the street, and I wanted to talk to you more about something." Maria blinked, suddenly feeling lightheaded. Elon Musk? The Elon Musk? She gripped the phone tighter, trying to keep her composure. I'm listening," she stammered, her mind racing. "I wanted to thank you again for what you said yesterday," Elon said. "The way you spoke up for me in the cafe, it really stuck with me. I don't get that kind of support often, and I respect it. So, I've been thinking, and I'd like to offer you an opportunity to work with us. I think you've got the right kind of attitude and integrity we need." Maria couldn't believe what she was hearing. Her mind was spinning. She had always been practical, never imagining that someone like Elon Musk would be interested in someone like her. I don't understand," she said slowly, trying to catch up with the conversation. "What do you mean, work with you?" "Well, we have a foundation," Elon explained. "We're always looking for people who are grounded, who care about making a difference. I know it's not glamorous work, but it's a start. I think you'd be a great fit, Maria." Her heart raced. She couldn't process everything at once. This was beyond anything she could have imagined. The janitor at a local office building, being offered an opportunity by one of the richest men in the world? I don't know what to say," Maria managed, her voice barely above a whisper. You don't need to say anything right now, Elon replied. But think about it. It could lead to something big. Just think about it. I'd love to meet and talk further. Maria stood still in the middle of the street, her legs feeling weak as the conversation ended. She was holding her phone in her hand, still processing the words she had just heard. Did this just happen? She walked the rest of the way to work in a daze, her mind swirling with possibilities. She had been given a chance to step out of the shadows and do something that might actually matter. But she didn't know if she was ready. It was one thing to dream about change, but it was another thing entirely to be offered the opportunity to make it happen. Maria spent the rest of her shift trying to focus, but her mind kept drifting back to the phone call. Every time she replayed Elon Musk's words in her head, her stomach twisted into knots. It felt like she was standing at the edge of a cliff, staring down into the unknown. She had questions, so many questions. Why her? What did he see in her that made him think she could work for a foundation tied to someone as successful as him? And most importantly, was this real? Part of her wondered if it was some elaborate prank. But deep down, she knew it wasn't. That voice, calm and deliberate, had been unmistakably his. When her shift ended, she took the bus home, staring out the window as the city blurred past. Her phone buzzed a few times, but she didn't check it until she got home. Collapsing onto her worn-out couch, Maria finally unlocked her screen. There was a text message waiting for her. Hi Maria, it's Elon. Here's my assistant's number. She can set up a meeting whenever you're ready. No pressure, just let us know. She read the message 3 times before it fully sank in. A mixture of excitement and panic surged through her. Her thumb hovered over the reply button, but she couldn't bring herself to respond just yet. The next morning, Maria woke up determined to make sense of it all. She had the day off, so she decided to visit her best friend, Tasha, who lived a few blocks away. Tasha was the one person Maria could always count on for advice and a reality check. As Maria walked into Tasha's cozy apartment, the scent of fresh coffee greeted her. Tasha, a sharp and vibrant woman who always had her hair styled just right, was already at the kitchen counter, scrolling through her phone. Hey girl, Tasha called, flashing her a bright smile. You look like you've seen a ghost. What's up? Maria hesitated, unsure of how to even begin. You're not gonna believe this, she said, dropping onto the couch. Tasha raised an eyebrow and joined her, handing over a steaming mug. Try me. Maria took a deep breath and launched into the story. Meeting Elon Musk, the heated exchange at the cafe, and then the phone call. By the time she finished, Tasha was staring at her, wide-eyed. Wait, Tasha said, holding up a hand. You're telling me that Elon Musk called you and offered you a job? Girl, are you serious right now? Maria nodded, feeling a mix of pride and doubt. I know it sounds crazy, but it really happened. Look. She pulled out her phone and showed Tasha the text. Tasha stared at the screen, her jaw dropping. Maria, this is insane. Do you have any idea what kind of doors this could open for you? You have to go for it. I don't know, Maria admitted, staring into her coffee. What if I'm not good enough? I mean, I'm just a janitor. What do I know about working for someone like him? Stop right there, Tasha said firmly. You're not just anything. You're smart, hardworking, and you've got more integrity than most people I know. Clearly, he saw that too. Otherwise, he wouldn't have offered you this chance. Maria sighed, feeling a glimmer of hope. What if it's too much? What if I mess up? Tasha leaned forward, her voice soft but steady. Maria, you've spent your whole life putting other people first. Maybe it's time to take a chance on yourself. You've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. Later that evening, Maria sat alone in her apartment, staring at the text message. Tasha's words echoed in her mind. Finally, she took a deep breath and typed out a response. Hi, this is Maria. I'd like to set up a meeting. Let me know when works. She hit send before she could overthink it, then leaned back on the couch, her heart racing. For better or worse, she had made her decision. Maria sat nervously in the corner of a sleek downtown office, her fingers tightly gripping the strap of her worn bag. The room was nothing like anything she'd experienced before. Walls lined with modern artwork, soft leather chairs, and floor-to-ceiling windows offering a stunning view of the city. She felt out of place, her modest outfit a sharp contrast to the polished, confident professionals bustling around. The assistant who had scheduled her meeting had been kind enough on the phone, but that didn't do much to ease Maria's nerves. When she arrived, the receptionist had greeted her with a smile and escorted her into the waiting area. Now, Maria waited, heart pounding, for whatever came next. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. A tall, well-dressed man with salt and pepper hair stepped into the room. He offered her a friendly smile and extended his hand. "Maria Jones?" he asked, his voice warm and professional. "I'm David Lang, Elon's Chief Operations Officer. Thanks for coming in." Maria stood quickly, shaking his hand. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Lang," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Please, call me David," he replied, motioning for her to follow him. "Elon wanted me to sit down with you first, get to know you a bit, and discuss the role. Then, if everything aligns, you'll meet with him." Maria nodded, swallowing hard as she followed him down a long hallway and into a sleek conference room. The walls were decorated with motivational quotes, and a high-tech screen took up an entire side of the room. David gestured for her to sit, and he took a seat across from her. "So, Maria," David began, resting his hands on the table, "Elon spoke very highly of you after your interaction. He was impressed by your courage and the way you stood up for what you believed in, even when it wasn't easy." Maria's cheeks flushed. "I just did what felt right," she said quietly. "I didn't think it would lead to this." David smiled. "That's exactly the kind of character we're looking for. Elon mentioned you're currently working as a janitor. Is that correct?" "Yes," Maria said, feeling a twinge of embarrassment. "I've been at the same building for a few years now." David leaned forward slightly. "There's nothing wrong with that. Hard work is hard work. But this opportunity is different. We're looking for someone with integrity, who can connect with people on a personal level, and who's willing to grow into something new. Elon thinks you fit that description." Maria felt a lump in her throat. She hadn't expected such kind words, or such an open-minded approach. "What exactly would I be doing?" she asked, her voice cautious but curious. David explained. "You'd be joining the Community Outreach Division of the Foundation. It's a role that combines administrative work with direct interaction in the communities we serve. Think of it as being the bridge between people and the resources they need. Your ability to empathize and your real-world experience would be invaluable." Maria's heart raced. The job sounded far beyond anything she'd ever done before. But at the same time, it felt like something she could see herself thriving in. David continued to outline the expectations, benefits, and support systems in place. By the time he finished, Maria's nerves had given way to cautious excitement. This wasn't just a job. It was a chance to make a real difference. "I know it's a lot to process," David said, his tone understanding, "but if you're willing to take the leap, we'd love to have you on board. I'll give you some time to think it over before you meet Elon." Maria hesitated, then looked him in the eye. "I've thought about it enough," she said firmly. "I'd like to give it a shot." David grinned, clearly pleased. "That's what I was hoping to hear. Let me check if Elon is free to meet with you now." A few minutes later, Maria found herself back in the waiting area. Her hands trembled slightly as she thought about what was coming next. Meeting Elon Musk face-to-face again, but this time on his turf, felt even more surreal than their first encounter. The receptionist finally approached with a warm smile. "Mr. Musk will see you now," she said, leading Maria to an elevator. The ride up was a blur. Before Maria knew it, she was stepping into a minimalist office with a stunning view of the city skyline. Elon Musk stood near a large desk, casually dressed in jeans and a black t-shirt, typing on a laptop. He looked up and smiled when he saw her. "Maria," he said, extending his hand. "Thanks for coming." Maria shook his hand, her grip firm despite her nerves. "Thank you for the opportunity," she said, her voice steady. Elon gestured for her to sit on the couch near the window, and he joined her. "I wanted to meet you personally again," he began, his tone conversational. "What you did back at the cafe, that kind of courage and integrity is rare. It's what we need in this world, and I think you have a lot more to offer than you realize." Maria's breath caught. Hearing those words from someone like Elon Musk felt almost too good to be true, but she didn't let herself dwell on doubt. Instead, she focused on the possibilities ahead. Maria's head spun as she left Elon's office. The words he had spoken echoed in her mind. "You have something special, Maria. Don't underestimate yourself." She clutched the neatly bound folder David had handed her, containing details about her new role with the foundation. Every step down the gleaming corridor felt surreal, as though she were moving through a dream. But this was no dream. It was her life, somehow shifted into a completely new gear overnight. By the time she reached the street, the brisk air jolted her back to reality. The city seemed noisier and brighter, or maybe her heightened emotions made everything feel more intense. She stopped at the corner, letting herself process what had just happened. Maria had said yes. The words had left her lips before she could fully comprehend the gravity of her decision. She would leave behind her old life of predictable shifts, quiet routines, and the solace of anonymity. In its place awaited a role that would test her limits in ways she could barely imagine. "Maria?" The voice startled her. She turned to see Kendra, one of her co-workers from the office building where she had worked as a janitor. Kendra's sharp, inquisitive eyes scanned Maria from head to toe. "What are you doing all the way over here?" "And what's that?" she asked, pointing to the folder. Maria hesitated. She wasn't ready to explain everything. Not yet. "Oh, just handling some things," she said vaguely, tucking the folder under her arm. Kendra narrowed her eyes but didn't press further. "Well, don't forget about movie night tomorrow. You better not flake again." "I won't," Maria promised with a small smile. As Kendra walked off, Maria sighed. How would she tell Kendra, or anyone, about this massive change in her life? Would they even believe her? That evening, Maria sat at her tiny kitchen table, the folders spread out before her. She read each page carefully, her eyes lingering on the job description. The position wasn't just about connecting people to resources, it was about being a voice for the underserved. She would be working on projects designed to bridge the gap between cutting-edge technology and communities that often got left behind. It was inspiring but also terrifying. Maria thought back to the people in her life who had doubted her, dismissed her, or underestimated her potential. Would they laugh if they heard she was now working for one of the most influential men in the world? Then she thought about her late grandmother, who had always believed Maria was destined for something great. "Baby, you've got a light inside you," she used to say. "Don't you dare let the world snuff it out." Maria sat up straighter, her resolve strengthening. She couldn't let fear or doubt hold her back, not now. The next morning, Maria arrived at the Foundation's office for her orientation. David greeted her with the same warmth as before and introduced her to the team. Most of her new colleagues were friendly and welcoming, though a few seemed skeptical. Maria couldn't blame them. She wasn't exactly a conventional hire, and she knew she'd have to prove herself. The day flew by in a whirlwind of meetings, training sessions, and introductions. By the end, Maria felt equal parts exhilarated and overwhelmed. As she rode the bus home, she looked out the window at the city passing by. She thought about all the people she had cleaned up after, the ones who barely noticed her existence. "They're going to notice me now," she thought, her lips curving into a small, determined smile. Maria arrived early on her first full day at the Foundation, clutching her new ID badge like a lifeline. The bustling energy of the office was contagious, with colleagues zipping between meetings and brainstorming sessions in glass-walled conference rooms. She felt like a small fish in an enormous, high-tech pond. David met her in the lobby, his usual encouraging grin intact. "You ready for today?" "As ready as I'll ever be," Maria replied, though her stomach churned with nerves. He led her to a desk in an open-plan workspace. It was more modern than anything she'd ever imagined for herself, complete with a sleek laptop, ergonomic chair, and a small plant for decoration. Maria ran her fingers over the desk's smooth surface, feeling a mix of awe and trepidation. "You'll be shadowing my team this week," David explained. "Today, we're preparing for the launch of an outreach initiative aimed at schools in underserved neighborhoods. It's part of Elon's broader vision to make technology more accessible to everyone." Maria nodded, eager to dive in but unsure where to start. The morning passed in a blur of emails, strategy discussions, and tutorial videos. Maria quickly realized how much she had to learn, not just about the technology they were working on, but also the language of the corporate world. Acronyms flew around like confetti, and she scribbled notes furiously, determined to keep up. At lunch, Maria sat with a few team members in the sleek cafeteria, which felt more like a trendy cafe than a workspace. "So, you're the one Elon personally brought on board?" asked a sharp-looking woman named Clara, raising an eyebrow. Maria shifted uncomfortably under Clara's gaze. "I guess so." Clara smirked. "Must have been quite a meeting. Most of us had to jump through a million hoops to get here." "I'm just trying to do my best," Maria said evenly, refusing to let Clara's comment rattle her. Another colleague, a soft-spoken man named Ethan, chimed in. "Give her a break, Clara. We all start somewhere." Maria shot Ethan a grateful smile, but Clara's words lingered in her mind. Later that afternoon, David asked Maria to contribute to the outreach initiative by drafting a personal statement about why she believed in the project's mission. "It doesn't have to be perfect," he assured her. "Just tell your story, why this matters to you." Maria stared at the blank document on her screen, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. How could she explain her journey in a way that made sense to these people, who came from such different worlds? Taking a deep breath, she began typing. "When I was growing up, my grandmother used to tell me that education and opportunity were the keys to breaking free from the cycle of struggle. But where I came from, those keys weren't always within reach. I've seen firsthand how lack of resources can hold people back, not because they're not capable, but because they don't have the tools or support they need to succeed. That's why I'm passionate about this initiative. Giving kids access to technology and the knowledge to use it isn't just about teaching them how to code or build apps. It's about opening doors, sparking curiosity, and showing them that they're capable of achieving things they never thought possible." Maria reread her words, her chest tightening with emotion. For the first time, she felt a flicker of confidence that her voice and her experiences mattered. She sent the document to David, her heart pounding. Minutes later, his response popped up. "This is exactly what we needed." "Great work, Maria." That evening, as Maria left the office, she noticed Clara standing near the elevator. "Hey," Clara said, her tone softer than before. "David showed me your statement. It's really good. I can see why he's so excited to have you on the team." Maria blinked in surprise. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady. Clara gave her a small nod, then stepped into the elevator. As Maria walked out into the night, she felt lighter than she had in days. Maybe, just maybe, she could hold her own in this new world after all. Maria was still settling into her new routine when David called her into a team meeting. The conference room was a marvel of modern design, with a large glass table, wall-mounted screens, and an air of quiet intensity. "Today, we're presenting our outreach plan to Elon and the executive team," David announced as the team shuffled into their seats. "Maria, I want you to sit in on this. You've had a fresh perspective on this project, and it's important." Maria's heart skipped a beat. "Me? Are you sure?" David grinned. "Absolutely. You've got this." When Elon entered the room, the air shifted. He was dressed casually, but his presence filled the space. Maria straightened in her chair, hoping to blend in. David began the presentation, outlining the goals and strategy of the school outreach initiative. He highlighted Maria's personal statement as a cornerstone of their messaging, and her words flashed across the screen. Maria felt her cheeks warm as Elon's gaze flicked toward her. "This is compelling," Elon said, tapping his fingers on the table. "Personal stories like this are what make initiatives like ours resonate." "Great job, Maria." "Thank you," Maria replied, her voice steady despite the surge of pride coursing through her. As the meeting continued, Maria took notes, soaking in the fast-paced exchanges. The executives debated funding allocations, potential risks, and long-term impact. It was a world apart from the hands-on work she'd known, but Maria was fascinated by the depth of their planning and vision. Halfway through, Elon posed a question that caught the room off guard. "How do we ensure this program reaches the kids who need it most?" There was a brief silence as the team considered the question. Maria hesitated, but then raised her hand slightly. "Elon, if I may," she began, her voice tentative but gaining strength. "I think we need to partner directly with community leaders, teachers, local nonprofits, even parents. They're the ones who understand the unique challenges in their neighborhoods. If we bring them into the process, we can make sure our resources are truly impactful." Elon nodded thoughtfully. "That's a solid point. Let's explore partnerships like that. David, make it a priority." Maria's suggestion earned her several approving glances from the team, and David gave her a discreet thumbs up. After the meeting, Elon approached Maria as the others filed out. "Maria, I'm impressed by how you've jumped into this," he said. "You bring a perspective we need more of around here. Keep speaking up." "Thank you," Maria said, her voice filled with gratitude. "I'm just trying to do my part." "You're doing more than that," he replied, offering a brief but genuine smile before heading to his next meeting. Maria floated through the rest of the day, her confidence growing. Later, when she shared the day's events with her mother over the phone, her mom's pride was evident in her voice. "You see, Maria, you were meant for more than scrubbing floors. You're showing them what you're made of," her mom said, her voice tinged with emotion. Maria smiled, leaning against her apartment's window as she gazed at the city lights. "I still have a lot to prove, Mom, but for the first time, I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be." Maria's growing confidence in her new role didn't go unnoticed by her colleagues. Some applauded her, seeing her as an example of how talent could emerge from unexpected places. Others, however, weren't as enthusiastic. Whispers began to ripple through the office. "She's only here because Elon likes her," one coworker muttered under their breath during a lunch break. "She's way out of her depth," another said, shaking their head. Maria tried to brush off the comments, but the words lingered in her mind like an unwelcome shadow. Despite her accomplishments, doubt began to creep in. Was she really earning her place here, or was she just a charity case? The tension came to a head during a team brainstorming session. The group was tasked with refining their outreach plan, and Maria had prepared ideas she felt confident about. But as she presented them, a senior staff member named Allison interrupted. "I don't think that's realistic, Maria," Allison said, her tone sharp. "We've already tried similar approaches, and they didn't work." Maria hesitated, taken aback by the blunt dismissal. "I understand your concerns, but this approach involves collaborating directly with grassroots organizations. It's different from what's been done before." Allison raised an eyebrow. "Different doesn't always mean better. We can't afford to waste time chasing ideas that might not deliver." The room grew quiet, and Maria felt the weight of all eyes on her. "I believe it's worth exploring," Maria said, her voice steady but firm. "Sometimes, the only way to make progress is by trying something new." Elon, who had been quietly observing from the corner of the room, finally spoke. "Maria's right. Innovation often requires taking risks. Let's give her idea a chance to develop. Allison, you and Maria can collaborate on this to ensure it's as strong as possible." Allison's lips pressed into a thin line, but she nodded. "Understood." Later that evening, as Maria tidied up her workspace, Allison approached her. "Maria, I'm not trying to discourage you," Allison began, her tone softer than before. "It's just that we've seen so many ideas fail in this space. It's frustrating, and sometimes I get impatient." Maria looked up, surprised by the admission. "I understand, Allison. I really do. I just think we have to keep trying, even if the odds aren't always in our favor." Allison studied her for a moment before nodding. "Fair enough. Let's make this work." As Maria walked home that night, the city lights flickering around her, she reflected on the day's events. Standing her ground in the meeting had been nerve-wracking, but it also reminded her of why she was here. She wasn't just representing herself. She was proof that determination and resilience could open doors, even in the most unlikely places. Back at her apartment, Maria sat by her small kitchen table and opened her laptop. She pulled up an email draft she'd been working on, a proposal to bring mentorship opportunities into the outreach program. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, a moment of hesitation creeping in. Then she smiled. No more second-guessing. Maria hit send. Maria hadn't thought much about the mentorship proposal she'd sent the night before. She figured it would get lost in the shuffle of emails, one more idea in a sea of possibilities. So, when she walked into the office the next morning, she was completely unprepared for the whirlwind awaiting her. "Maria," David called from across the office, waving her over. His expression was equal parts excitement and urgency. "Elon wants to see us now." "Us?" Maria echoed, her stomach flipping. David nodded. "He read your email." In Elon's office, the atmosphere was charged with energy. He was seated at his minimalist desk, scrolling through a tablet. When Maria and David entered, he looked up, his eyes sharp and focused. "Maria, this mentorship idea," Elon began without preamble. "It's excellent. We've been brainstorming ways to make our outreach program more impactful, and this fits perfectly. Tell me more." Maria swallowed her nerves and stepped forward. "The idea is to pair professionals from our company with students in underserved communities. It's not just about technical skills. It's about showing them what's possible, giving them role models who can inspire them to dream bigger." Elon leaned back in his chair, considering her words. "I like it. It's actionable, scalable, and aligns with our mission. David, I want this integrated into the outreach program immediately." David nodded, scribbling notes. "And Maria," Elon added, turning to her, "I want you to lead the pilot project." Maria blinked. "Lead it?" "Yes," Elon said, his tone decisive. "You understand the vision better than anyone else. You'll have support, of course, but I trust you to get this off the ground." As Maria left the office, a mix of exhilaration and anxiety coursed through her. Led a project? She had never even imagined being in this position, let alone so soon. David clapped her on the back. "Congratulations, Maria. You've earned this." "Thanks," she said, her voice shaky. "But I've never done anything like this before. What if I mess it up?" David grinned. "Everyone feels that way at the start. Just remember, you're here for a reason. You've got this." That evening, Maria sat at her apartment's tiny desk, surrounded by notes and sketches for the mentorship program. Her mind buzzed with ideas, but doubts lingered at the edges. Could she really pull this off? She thought about the kids she'd seen during her time working as a janitor. Kids who laughed and played, their futures unwritten. If she could make a difference in even one of their lives, it would all be worth it. Maria squared her shoulders and got to work. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. Maria coordinated with schools, reached out to colleagues who might serve as mentors, and worked closely with David to finalize the program structure. There were moments of frustration, unanswered emails, logistical hurdles, but Maria pushed through, determined to see the project succeed. One afternoon, as she was reviewing the mentor applications, she received a call from Elon's assistant. "Elon would like to check in on the mentorship program tomorrow," the assistant said. Maria's heart raced. Tomorrow? She wasn't sure everything was ready, but she thanked the assistant and hung up, determined to make a strong impression. The next day, Maria stood in front of a presentation board in the conference room, her hands gripping a laser pointer. Elon entered, followed by several executives. The room fell silent as he took his seat. "Maria, the floor is yours," Elon said. Maria took a deep breath and began. She outlined the program's goals, its structure, and the progress made so far. She highlighted the enthusiasm from both the mentors and the schools, emphasizing the potential impact on the students' lives. When she finished, there was a moment of silence. Then Elon nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. "Well done, Maria," he said. "This has the potential to be a game changer. Let's move forward with the pilot." Maria exhaled, relief washing over her. The launch day of the mentorship program arrived faster than Maria could have anticipated. The pilot was set to begin at a middle school on the edge of town, a place with peeling paint on the walls but students whose energy and curiosity lit up the hallways. Maria arrived early, wearing a crisp blazer she'd borrowed from her sister, trying to project confidence she wasn't entirely sure she felt. She carried a box of materials for the day's kickoff presentation, her nerves fraying as she glanced at the clock. By mid-morning, the gymnasium was filled with students seated on the bleachers, their chatter echoing through the space. Maria stood at the front, gripping the microphone like it was a lifeline. A projector displayed the mentorship program's logo behind her. David gave her a reassuring thumbs up from the side of the stage. "You've got this," he mouthed. Maria cleared her throat. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice shaking slightly. "My name is Maria Carter, and I'm here to talk about a new program we're launching to help you explore your dreams." She paused, scanning the room. The students' faces were a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Maria smiled, remembering her own doubts at their age. "When I was growing up," she continued, "I didn't think much about what I could be. I was too focused on what I couldn't be. But sometimes, all it takes is one person to change your perspective, to show you what's possible. This program is about giving you that person." The room quieted as Maria spoke, her nerves fading with every word. She outlined the mentorship program, explaining how it would pair students with professionals from various fields. She emphasized that this wasn't just about academics or careers, it was about believing in themselves. The event wrapped up with a round of applause, and as the students filed out, several lingered to ask questions. Maria felt a spark of hope as she answered them, seeing their initial doubts replaced with genuine interest. "That was impressive," David said, walking up to her. "You connected with them. That's the hardest part." Maria grinned, the weight of the day lifting slightly. "Thanks. I just hope the mentors can keep them engaged." "They will," David said confidently. "This is a strong start." That evening, Maria sat at her desk, reviewing feedback forms from the mentors and school staff. Most were positive, but a few mentioned concerns about maintaining students' interest over time. Maria jotted down notes, already brainstorming ways to address these issues. As she worked, her phone buzzed with a new email. It was from Elon's office. "Maria, I heard the pilot launch went well today. Congratulations on taking this from an idea to a reality. Let's discuss how to scale this further." Elon. Maria's heart swelled with pride. She reread the email twice, savoring the acknowledgement. The following week, Maria met with Elon to discuss the program's next steps. Sitting across from him in the sleek conference room, she felt both excited and overwhelmed. "We need to expand this," Elon said, leaning forward. "I want it in 10 schools by next quarter. Can you handle that?" Maria hesitated. The pilot had been manageable, but scaling up to 10 schools felt daunting. Still, she couldn't say no. "I'll do my best," she said, her voice steady. Elon nodded. "Good. You'll have additional resources, but I want you leading this. You've proven you can handle it." As Maria left the meeting, her mind buzzed with ideas and to-dos. She knew the road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. Maria Carter sat at her modest kitchen table, its surface now buried under a pile of notes, spreadsheets, and a calendar filled with color-coded reminders. Scaling the mentorship program from 1 school to 10 was a leap she hadn't fully anticipated. 10 schools, she murmured, tapping her pen against the table. What did I just agree to? Her phone buzzed. It was a text from her sister, Vanessa. "Don't overwork yourself, Maria. Proud of you, though. Dinner Friday?" Maria smiled but didn't reply immediately. Dinner felt like a luxury she couldn't afford right now. The first challenge was logistics. Each school had its own unique culture, schedule, and set of needs. Maria spent days driving across the city, meeting with principals, counselors, and teachers to get them on board. At one school, she was greeted with enthusiasm. "We've been looking for a program like this," the principal said. "Our students need role models who can show them what's possible." But at another, she encountered skepticism. "Mentorship is great in theory," a teacher told her, arms crossed. "But will it really make a difference? These kids have bigger problems than career advice." Maria left that meeting with a lump in her throat, but she refused to let doubt creep in. Meanwhile, the team Elon had assigned to support her worked tirelessly to identify mentors who could volunteer their time. Tech entrepreneurs, doctors, artists, and engineers, all willing to share their journeys with young people. Maria quickly learned how much work it took to align everyone's schedules. "It's like solving a 3D puzzle," she joked to David during a late-night planning session. "Good thing you're good at puzzles," he replied with a grin. Despite the long hours, Maria knew she couldn't let the mentorship program consume her entirely. One evening, she took a break to visit Vanessa and her nephew, Malik. Malik greeted her with a big hug. "Auntie Maria, did you meet any astronauts yet?" Maria laughed. Not yet, but I'll let you know when I do. Vanessa gave her a knowing look as they sat down to dinner. You're burning the candle at both ends again, aren't you? I'm fine, Maria replied, though her tired eyes betrayed her. Maria, you don't have to carry this alone. Delegate, ask for help. You're not superhuman, you know? Her sister's words stuck with her long after she left. A week later, Maria found herself standing in a packed gymnasium at one of the new schools. The air buzzed with energy as students and mentors mingled for the first time. One student, a shy girl named Kiera, caught Maria's attention. She lingered at the edge of the room, avoiding eye contact. Maria approached her with a warm smile. Hi there. I'm Maria. What's your name? Kiera, the girl mumbled. Nice to meet you, Kiera. Do you know what kind of career you're interested in? Kiera shrugged. Don't know. Nobody in my family really talks about that stuff. Maria knelt to meet her eye level. That's okay. This program is about exploring. You don't have to know everything right now. Just be curious, and let's see where it takes you. For the first time, Kiera smiled. By the end of the evening, Maria was exhausted but exhilarated. Watching the students connect with their mentors reminded her why she had taken on this challenge in the first place. As she packed up her things, her phone buzzed with a notification. An email from Elon. Asterisk Maria, great work with the expansion. Let's talk about taking this nationwide. Elon, asterisk. Maria stared at the screen, her breath catching. Nationwide? The thought was thrilling but terrifying. That night, she sat on her bed, staring at her laptop. Could she really handle this next step? Her sister's words echoed in her mind. You don't have to carry this alone. Taking a deep breath, Maria drafted a reply to Elon. She outlined her vision for scaling up, but this time, she included a request for additional staff and resources. I can't do it all, she admitted to herself as she hit send. Maria Carter woke up to a ping on her phone, a response from Elon Musk. She rubbed her eyes and squinted at the screen, her heart pounding as she read the short but impactful reply. Asterisk Maria, absolutely. Let's meet to discuss the details. How's next week? Elon, asterisk. A mix of excitement and nerves coursed through her. The thought of sitting down with Elon to discuss taking the mentorship program nationwide felt surreal. That week, Maria dove headfirst into preparation. She researched other national mentorship programs, studying their structures and successes. She mapped out a vision that could scale the program while staying true to its mission. David, her ever-reliable sounding board, stopped by her apartment with coffee and donuts one evening. So, you're about to pitch a nationwide program to one of the most influential people on the planet, he said, sitting across from her. No pressure. Maria chuckled, though her stomach churned. Thanks for the pep talk, David. Seriously, he said, leaning forward, you've got this. You've already done the hardest part, proving this works. Now it's just about showing him how to take it to the next level. Maria smiled, appreciating his encouragement. The meeting was set for the following Wednesday at an office in downtown Los Angeles. Maria arrived early, clutching a sleek presentation folder. The receptionist led her to a spacious conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the city skyline. When Elon walked in, he was as casual as ever, wearing a leather jacket and jeans. Maria, he greeted her warmly. Good to see you again. Let's dive in. She nodded, took a deep breath, and began her presentation. Maria outlined her vision with clarity and passion. We can expand the program in phases, starting with underserved communities in major cities. The goal is to partner with local organizations to ensure sustainability. We'll need regional coordinators, a robust training program for mentors, and tech tools to track progress and outcomes. Elon listened intently, occasionally asking pointed questions. What's your plan for funding beyond the initial launch? He asked. We'd approach corporations and philanthropists aligned with education and equity, Maria replied. Many are already looking for impactful initiatives to support. As she wrapped up, she added, I believe this program can be a catalyst for generational change. We're not just mentoring students, we're inspiring them to dream bigger and providing a pathway to achieve those dreams. Elon leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. Maria, this is impressive, he said finally. You've clearly thought this through. I'm in. Her eyes widened. You're in? Yes, he said, smiling. But let's aim higher. Why stop at major cities? Let's think about rural areas, too. We'll allocate more resources to make it happen. Maria blinked, momentarily overwhelmed. I thank you. I won't let you down. I know you won't, Elon replied. Let's get my team involved to start building this out. And Maria, you'll need to step into a leadership role to oversee the expansion. You're the heart of this program, and that's not something we can replicate. As Maria left the meeting, the gravity of what had just happened hit her. She had secured Elon Musk's full backing to scale her mentorship program nationwide. It was thrilling, but also daunting. Could she really lead such a massive initiative? David called her as soon as he heard the news. You're leading the national expansion? He exclaimed. Maria, that's huge. I know, she said, her voice tinged with both excitement and fear. It's just so much bigger than I ever imagined. Good, he said firmly. Dreams should scare you a little. That's how you know they're worth it. That evening, Maria sat at her kitchen table, staring at the city lights through her window. She thought about all the students who would benefit from this program, all the lives that could be changed. She also thought about Kiera, the shy girl from the mentorship event, and how much confidence the program had already given her. This is why I'm doing this, Maria whispered to herself. Maria woke up early, her mind already buzzing with the overwhelming amount of work ahead. The reality of Elon Musk's backing for her mentorship program hit her full force. It wasn't just a simple partnership. It was a monumental responsibility that she could no longer ignore. She stood in front of the mirror, her reflection staring back at her, the weight of the coming changes settling into her chest. It wasn't just about launching the program anymore. It was about leading a nationwide initiative, and that meant more pressure, more expectations, and more people depending on her. As she sat at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee, the first of many calls came through. It was Elon's assistant, Jane. Good morning, Maria. We're moving forward with your expansion plan. Elon wants to meet again in a few days to go over the logistics, timelines, and funding strategies. He's asking for a detailed outline by then. Maria's pulse quickened. A detailed outline? By then? Yes. You'll need to incorporate regional teams, partnerships, and a tech rollout. We're going to need everything lined up. Got it, Maria replied, trying to mask the panic creeping into her voice. The last thing she wanted to do was disappoint Elon, especially after he'd put his trust in her. Later that day, Maria sat down with her laptop, staring at the blinking cursor on a blank page. The pressure to deliver the perfect plan was suffocating. She had managed to keep things together when the mentorship program was small, but now, it felt like she was in over her head. She picked up her phone and sent a quick text to David. I need help. This is more than I thought. I can't do this alone. A moment later, her phone buzzed with his response. Of course you can. Let's meet up tonight, and we'll start working on it together. That evening, David arrived with his usual bag of snacks, chips, cookies, and soda. As always, his presence helped Maria breathe a little easier. You've got this, Maria, he said as they sat together in her small living room, papers and files scattered everywhere. It's just about breaking it down into steps. Maria sighed, rubbing her temples. I'm supposed to oversee the whole national rollout. There's no just breaking it down for this. I don't even know where to start. David smiled, tossing a cookie into his mouth. Okay, well, let's start with the regions. You need to decide which cities are top priorities. Let's target areas with the most need and where you already have some connections. Maria nodded, feeling a spark of relief. Right. Okay, I can do that. Over the next few days, the two of them worked tirelessly, organizing the plan into clear, actionable pieces. They created a list of potential cities, identified possible corporate sponsors, and began reaching out to local organizations that could serve as partners. By the time Maria put together the outline, she felt a mix of exhaustion and pride. She had done it. She had created a plan that felt solid, one that could actually work. The day of the meeting arrived quickly. Maria walked into the sleek, high-rise office building with a folder full of her ideas. As the elevator doors opened to the top floor, she was greeted by Elon's assistant, who led her to the meeting room. Elon was already seated at the head of the table, surrounded by several of his key team members. "Maria," Elon greeted her warmly. "We're excited to see what you've put together." With a deep breath, Maria laid out the plan, walking the team through each phase of the rollout. As she spoke, she could feel Elon's gaze on her, sharp and focused, but encouraging. She finished with a slide detailing the timeline and funding needs, her heart pounding. "This is the foundation for a nationwide program," she said, "but it will take the right resources to make it happen. The sooner we can secure funding and partnerships, the quicker we can launch." There was a long silence as the team reviewed her work. Maria sat back, trying to gauge their reactions, her mind racing. Finally, Elon spoke up. "This is impressive, Maria. You've done a lot of work, and it's clear you're committed." "But," Maria's stomach dropped. "But, we'll need to move quickly," he continued. "I'm talking about national marketing campaigns, media outreach, and getting the right people in the right cities. It's a big undertaking, and there's no time to waste." Maria's throat went dry. "I understand. I'm ready to move forward." As the meeting wrapped up, Elon stood and shook her hand. "I believe in this, Maria. You've got what it takes to make it happen." Maria nodded, though doubt lingered in her mind. Could she really manage everything? Or was she in over her head? Walking out of the building, Maria pulled out her phone and texted David. "Meeting went well, but it's about to get real. I'm nervous." David's response was swift. "You've got this. You've been leading this program from the start. You just need to keep your eyes on the goal. Don't let the pressure get to you." As Maria walked back to her car, she couldn't help but feel the weight of her new responsibilities. She had a vision, but now she needed to turn it into a reality. And she knew it wasn't going to be easy. Maria sat at her desk the next morning, surrounded by papers, spreadsheets, and her laptop open to an overwhelming sea of emails. She had barely slept, her mind racing with thoughts about her new responsibilities. The weight of Elon Musk's trust felt heavier each minute, and the challenge before her was growing. It had been only a few days since she presented her plan to Elon and his team, but already everything felt like it was moving at breakneck speed. There were meetings to arrange, partnerships to solidify, and a team to assemble. She felt like she was trying to juggle too many things, and no matter how hard she tried, she could never quite get a grip on it all. The first obstacle had already appeared. Maria opened the email from the marketing team, her eyes scanning the lines with increasing frustration. The marketing budget for the project had been slashed significantly, leaving her with less than half of what she had originally proposed. She ran a hand through her hair. This wasn't supposed to happen. She had carefully planned out every detail, ensuring she had enough funding for the program's launch. But now, with less than half the resources, she had to rethink the entire marketing strategy. "Why is this happening now?" she muttered to herself. Later that day, Maria sat with David at a local cafe, trying to make sense of the situation. "I don't know what to do," she said, looking up from the budget proposal. "The marketing team can't make cuts like this. It's going to ruin the rollout if we don't have the proper backing." David leaned back in his chair, his face thoughtful. "Okay, let's break it down. You've got two options here. You can either go back to Elon and push for more funds, or you can work with what you've got and find ways to get creative." Maria sighed. "The thing is, I don't know if going back to Elon would be the right move. I don't want to look like I'm not prepared, especially after he put so much faith in me." David raised an eyebrow. "But you need the resources to make this work. It's not about looking unprepared. It's about making sure you have what you need to succeed." Maria paused, mulling over his words. She hated the idea of asking for more, but she knew deep down that without the necessary marketing budget, the whole program could collapse before it even began. That afternoon, Maria reached out to Elon's assistant, Jane, to schedule a call. She needed to speak directly to Elon and explain the situation. It wasn't something she was looking forward to, but it was a conversation that had to happen. As she waited for the call, she couldn't shake the anxiety gnawing at her. This was the first real test of her leadership, and the pressure was building. When the call finally came, Elon's voice was calm, but there was an unmistakable edge of urgency in it. "Maria, what's on your mind?" he asked. Maria took a deep breath, her fingers trembling slightly as she held the phone. "Elon, I've been reviewing the marketing budget for the program, and I've run into a problem. The allocated funds have been reduced, and without the proper support, we're going to struggle to meet the expectations we've set. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Elon responded, his voice thoughtful. I see. I understand the importance of a strong marketing push. Let me talk to my team and see if we can't reallocate some funds. Maria's heart gave a relieved flutter. I really appreciate that, Elon. It's just that this program has the potential to impact a lot of people, and I want to make sure we do it right. I agree, Elon replied. Let's get this sorted out. I'm confident in your ability to execute this, Maria. Don't worry about it too much. Maria hung up the phone with a renewed sense of determination. She had a long road ahead of her, but for the first time in days, she felt like she might just be able to pull this off. The next morning, Elon's assistant sent over the revised budget, confirming the additional funds for the marketing campaign. Maria felt a wave of relief wash over her, but it was only temporary. As much as the extra resources helped, there were still 100 other obstacles to face. As the days passed, Maria dove into the next challenge, assembling a team to help manage the nationwide program. She needed people who were not only skilled but also aligned with her values. People who genuinely cared about the mission and were passionate about making a difference. She sat down for interviews with a handful of candidates, looking for that spark, someone who could handle the fast pace, the pressure, and the heavy expectations. It wasn't easy, and as she interviewed candidate after candidate, she started to realize just how high the stakes were. By the end of the week, Maria had managed to narrow the pool down to a small group of potential team members. But now, the real work would begin. With each new hire, there came new responsibilities, new challenges, and more decisions to be made. Maria stepped out of the office building and into the cool evening air. The city was bustling around her, people coming and going in all directions. She felt a weight on her shoulders, but there was a glimmer of excitement too. The work was just beginning, and there was no turning back. Maria walked into the office the next morning, the familiar buzz of activity filling the space. But today it felt different. There was a tension in the air, an undercurrent of expectation that weighed on her shoulders. The extra funding was a relief, but it had come with an unspoken promise: deliver, and deliver big. She glanced at the team she had assembled. Each one had been handpicked, carefully chosen for their skills and enthusiasm. But now, as she stood in front of them, the reality of the task ahead seemed daunting. Everyone was looking to her for guidance, for answers, and that pressure. How much longer could she keep it up? The first few days with her new team had been a whirlwind. Meetings, strategy sessions, and countless decisions. Maria had barely had a chance to catch her breath before they were diving into the next big task, launching the pilot program. The stakes were high, and failure wasn't an option. Sitting in the conference room, Maria looked around at the faces of her team members, each one filled with a mix of excitement and nervous energy. They were all in this together, but the weight of the mission rested heavily on Maria. She had to set the tone. She had to lead them through this storm. So, here's where we stand, she began, standing at the head of the table, a stack of papers in front of her. We've got a clear timeline, the resources we need, and most importantly, we have a mission. To make this program a success, we need to be on top of every detail. From here on out, there are no excuses. The team nodded, each person jotting down notes, their focus unwavering. Maria continued, outlining the next steps, the specific responsibilities, and the milestones they needed to hit. It was a meticulous plan, one that left no room for error. But as the meeting ended, a question lingered in Maria's mind. What if something went wrong? What if the plan she'd worked so hard to perfect didn't work out the way she'd imagined? Could she handle the fallout? Later that afternoon, Maria received a call from Elon's office. It was Jane, Elon's assistant, with some news Maria had been expecting but wasn't entirely prepared for. Elon would like to meet with you tomorrow, Jane said, her tone professional but carrying an edge of urgency. He wants an update on the program's progress, and he's keen to discuss some of the next steps. I'll send over the details. Maria felt a knot tighten in her stomach. This was the meeting she had been dreading. She had no idea what Elon was going to ask, but one thing was clear. He expected results. He believed in her, but now, The pressure was on to deliver something that would live up to his expectations. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur as Maria prepared for the meeting. She reviewed every document, every strategy, every angle. By the time the sun had set, she was exhausted, but there was no time for rest. Tomorrow would be crucial. The next morning, Maria arrived at Elon's headquarters early, her mind racing with thoughts of the meeting ahead. She had worked tirelessly to prepare, but there was a nagging feeling at the back of her mind. What if her team wasn't ready? What if they hadn't made as much progress as she thought? Elon's office was sleek and modern, with walls of glass and a view of the city that took Maria's breath away. She tried not to let the opulence overwhelm her as she walked through the door, where Elon was already waiting for her. "Maria," Elon greeted her, his voice warm but direct. "How are things going?" "Busy," Maria replied, giving him a tight smile. "But we're making progress. The team is working hard, and we're on track for the pilot launch. I'm confident it's going to be a success." Elon nodded, his gaze intense but thoughtful. "I'm glad to hear that. But you know as well as I do that things don't always go as planned. What's the backup plan?" Maria hesitated, momentarily caught off guard by the question. "We've got contingencies in place for every scenario," she said, regaining her composure. "But I'm not anticipating any issues. We've accounted for all the variables." Elon raised an eyebrow. "Good. But make sure your team is ready to handle anything that comes their way. We can't afford any mistakes." His words hit hard, but Maria understood where he was coming from. The program's success was critical, not just for her, but for everyone involved. If it failed, it wouldn't just be a personal setback. It would reflect on Elon's judgment as well. That evening, as Maria returned home, she felt the weight of the day press down on her. The meeting with Elon had been intense, and while he seemed pleased with the progress, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to prove. The road ahead was full of unknowns, and each step felt like it could be the make-or-break moment. But Maria was determined. She had come this far, and she wasn't about to give up now. There was too much at stake. The following weeks were a blur of meetings, updates, and revisions. Maria's team worked around the clock, making sure every aspect of the program was ready for the pilot. As the launch date neared, the tension in the office grew palpable. There were sleepless nights, setbacks, and moments of doubt, but Maria pushed through. She couldn't afford to show weakness now. Finally, the day of the launch arrived. Maria stood in the front of the room. Her team gathered around, ready to kick off the pilot. She felt a surge of adrenaline as she glanced at the monitors, which displayed real-time data on the program's progress. Everything had been prepared, every scenario accounted for. Now, it was time to see if all the work would pay off. As the first wave of participants began to engage with the program, Maria's heart pounded in her chest. This was it, the moment everything hinged on. The pilot program had been live for hours now, and Maria couldn't tear herself away from the screen. The data was streaming in, and everything seemed to be going smoothly. But she couldn't shake the uneasy feeling gnawing at her stomach. The success of this program meant more than just a successful launch. It meant everything for her future, for her career. The pressure was suffocating. She paced back and forth in her office, occasionally glancing at her phone. No word yet from Elon. He had promised to check in as soon as the first results were in, and Maria knew that when he did, it would be the moment of truth. Would he be impressed? Or would he see cracks in the foundation of the plan they'd worked so hard to create? Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. The sound of her phone buzzing on the desk broke her concentration. Her heart skipped a beat as she saw Elon's name flash on the screen. "Maria," Elon's voice came through the line, calm yet tinged with curiosity. "I've been following the progress. The numbers look promising so far, but I need to know. What happens if something goes wrong? What's the plan if we encounter a significant issue?" Maria took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his questions settle in her chest. This was the moment she had feared. No matter how much planning they had done, there was always a chance that something could go wrong. And if it did, could she handle the fallout? "We've accounted for everything," Maria replied, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "We've set up multiple backups for every key component of the program. If something goes wrong, we have teams ready to implement changes immediately." The technology is designed to be resilient. There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. Good, Elon said, his voice steady but firm. I'm trusting you, Maria. Make sure your team stays focused. We're all in on this now. The next few hours felt like a blur. Maria watched the program's progress in real time, her eyes glued to the numbers that kept shifting on the screen. Each change, each data point, felt like a heartbeat, a confirmation that they were either moving closer to success or veering off course. It wasn't long before the first hiccup appeared. One of the systems that was crucial to processing user data had slowed down, causing a brief delay in the program's performance. Maria's stomach dropped. This was exactly what she had been worried about, a problem that could spiral out of control if they didn't act quickly. She immediately called an emergency meeting with her team. They gathered around the conference table, all eyes on Maria as she explained the situation. We've hit a roadblock, Maria began, her voice steady despite the racing thoughts in her head. But we can fix this. I need everyone's attention. We've got a window to address this, and we're not wasting time. The room buzzed with activity as team members quickly began troubleshooting. It was a familiar scene to Maria, people working together, solving problems on the fly. But this time, the stakes were higher than ever before. If they didn't solve this quickly, they risked derailing the entire project. After what felt like an eternity, the team managed to resolve the issue. The system was up and running again, but Maria knew that this was only the beginning. They had a long way to go before the program could be considered a success. Still, a sense of relief washed over her. They had passed the first test. As the evening wore on, the updates kept coming in, and the data began to show positive signs. The user engagement was higher than expected, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Maria allowed herself a small smile. They had done it. The program was working. They were on track for success. Later that night, as Maria sat in her office, she received another call from Elon. She felt a mixture of exhaustion and anticipation as she answered. Maria, Elon's voice was warm but serious. I've seen the reports. The progress is impressive. You've done well, but I want to know, what's next? Maria sat back in her chair, taking a moment to collect her thoughts. She knew this question was coming. This wasn't the end of the journey. It was just the beginning. We're already planning the next phase, Maria replied, her voice filled with determination. We'll scale the program, refine the features, and expand our reach. We're just getting started. Elon was silent for a moment before responding. I'm glad to hear that. You've got a lot ahead of you, but I believe you're the right person for the job. Keep pushing, Maria. As the call ended, Maria couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. She had done it. They had done it. And now, the future seemed wide open. The next morning, Maria woke up with a sense of clarity. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind, but now she could see the path ahead. They had overcome the first major obstacle, and the pilot program was well on its way to success. There was still a long road ahead, but Maria felt ready. She had built something that mattered, and now it was time to take it further. As she prepared for another day of meetings and updates, a message from Elon popped up on her phone. It was brief, but to the point. Well done. Let's talk soon about scaling up. You're on the right track. Maria smiled to herself. The journey was far from over, but this was the moment she had worked for, and she wasn't about to let anything stop her now. Maria's phone buzzed on her desk as she sat, staring at the emails and reports piling up in front of her. The past few days had been a blur, but one thing was clear. The program's success was not only bringing her personal satisfaction, but it was also attracting attention from every corner of the tech world. Her inbox was flooded with congratulations, messages from potential collaborators, and offers for partnerships that could change everything. But with each email, her anxiety grew. Every decision she made from this point on could impact the future of the project, her career, and her life. She had always dreamed of making a difference, but now that it was happening, Maria wasn't sure if she was ready for what came next. Just then, her phone rang again. It was Elon. Maria, I've been looking over the new projections. Elon's voice came through, calm but sharp. The results are exceptional, but I think it's time we talk about expanding the team. This project is growing faster than we anticipated, and we need more hands on deck. Maria's heart raced. This was it, the moment when everything would change. As much as she had poured her soul into the program, this was a different level of commitment. She had always worked with small teams, focused on making sure every detail was perfect. But expanding to a larger team meant losing some of that control. Elon, I appreciate the trust you've placed in me, Maria said, her voice firm despite the nerves running through her. But before we expand the team, I think we need to make sure the foundation is solid. We can't afford to rush into this. Elon's tone softened, as if he understood her concern. I get it, Maria, but you're not alone in this. We've got a great group of people, and you're the one leading them. This is the right time. Maria felt a moment of hesitation. She had led teams before, but never at this scale. Could she really handle the pressure of managing so many people? The thought of having a team larger than she had ever worked with made her uneasy. I'll get back to you with a plan, Maria finally said, trying to mask her uncertainty with confidence. But I need to be sure we're making the right moves. This could make or break everything. The next few days were a whirlwind of meetings and strategy sessions. Maria worked tirelessly, drafting plans for how to scale the team, how to keep communication streamlined, and how to ensure that the quality of the work wouldn't suffer. The pressure was mounting, and Maria could feel the weight of it all. Every decision seemed crucial, and no matter how hard she worked, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was going to go wrong. As the team began to grow, Maria realized just how much responsibility she had taken on. The larger team meant more people to manage, more personalities to balance, and more expectations to meet. She could no longer just focus on the program itself. Now, she had to focus on everyone who was working on it. It was a level of stress she had never experienced before. One evening, as Maria sat in her office reviewing the latest progress reports, her phone rang again. It was Elon. Maria, he said, his voice urgent. I've been getting reports about some issues with the new hires. There are some concerns about the direction the team is heading. We need to address it immediately. Maria's stomach tightened. She knew this was coming. As much as she had tried to anticipate every possible problem, she had been so focused on the technical aspects of the project that she hadn't given enough thought to the human side of things. The team was growing, but so were the challenges. I'll look into it, Elon, Maria replied, trying to stay calm. I'll meet with the team tomorrow and figure out where the disconnect is. The next day, Maria gathered the new members of the team in a conference room. As she looked around the room at the eager faces of the people she had brought on board, a sense of doubt crept over her. Were they the right fit for this high-pressure environment? Were they all on the same page? All right, everyone, Maria began, her voice steady but firm. We've hit a few bumps in the road, and I want to address them head-on. Our mission is clear, but the way we're working together isn't aligning. I need to know where things are falling apart. There was a moment of silence before one of the team members, a software engineer named Rachel, spoke up. Maria, we're all trying to move forward, but some of us are feeling like the communication isn't as clear as it should be. There's a lot of back and forth, and it's starting to slow things down. Maria nodded, taking a deep breath. This was exactly what she had feared, losing control of the team's cohesion. All right, let's focus on improving communication. We need better systems in place to ensure everyone is on the same page. But I need your full commitment. This project has the potential to change everything, and I need every one of you to stay focused. As the meeting continued, Maria felt the weight of the conversation sink in. She could see the cracks beginning to show, and she knew that she had to fix them before they became irreparable. The growing pains of the team were inevitable, but they couldn't afford to let them derail everything they had worked so hard to achieve. Later that night, Maria found herself alone in her office, staring at the glowing screen in front of her. She had a long list of things to address: communication issues, team dynamics, and, most importantly, the pressure she felt to make every decision perfectly. Elon had been right to push for growth, but now she was starting to wonder if she had made the right choice. Could she really handle all of this? Was she prepared for the responsibility of leading this massive team? She had always been someone who thrived on challenges, but this felt different. The phone buzzed again, breaking her thoughts. It was another message from Elon. Maria, the message read, you're doing great, but don't forget to take care of yourself too. We can't do this if you burn out. She stared at the screen for a long moment, feeling a wave of exhaustion wash over her. As much as she appreciated Elon's encouragement, it didn't change the fact that the weight of this project was starting to take its toll. She had to keep going. There was no turning back now. Maria sat at her desk, her fingers hovering over the keyboard, the flashing cursor blinking back at her as if daring her to take the next step. It had been a week since the team's meeting, and despite her best efforts to implement changes, the tension among the new hires was palpable. The communication issues hadn't magically disappeared, and now, there were murmurs of discontent throughout the team. Maria had always been the one to keep things together, but lately, she felt herself unraveling bit by bit. She thought back to the early days of the project, when it had all been about a small, focused team, working together with a shared vision. It had been a dream come true, simple, clear, and achievable. Now, every decision she made felt monumental, and the weight of the responsibility seemed unbearable at times. Elon had been more distant in the last few days, his brief messages of support offering little comfort. Maria knew he was busy, running multiple companies, but part of her wished he would step in more, that he would give her the guidance she so desperately needed. But this was her project now, and it was up to her to make it succeed. No one else could do it for her. The following morning, as Maria walked into the office, she was greeted by an unusually quiet atmosphere. The team was scattered, heads down, absorbed in their tasks, but there was no sense of camaraderie, no energy. It felt like a group of individuals working in isolation rather than a unified team. Her heart sank. She went to her desk and immediately opened her email, scanning for any urgent issues. There was a message from Rachel, one of the newer engineers. It was short and to the point. "We need to talk about the project's direction. I'm feeling like we're hitting dead ends. Please let me know when we can meet." Maria exhaled sharply. She had been expecting something like this. Rachel had always been outspoken, and her frustration was beginning to spill over. Maria had tried to address the issues earlier, but it seemed like they were only getting worse. She sent a quick reply, setting up a time to meet later that afternoon. Then, with a heavy heart, she left her office and walked down the hallway to the common area. As she passed by the team's workstations, she overheard snippets of conversation, nothing positive. There were whispers of better opportunities elsewhere, talk of disillusionment with the project's direction, and growing impatience with Maria's leadership. The feeling of isolation was becoming unbearable. These were the same people she had once been so excited to bring onto the team, people who shared her vision. Now, she was starting to wonder if she had made a mistake. As the afternoon wore on, Maria met with Rachel in one of the meeting rooms. The tension in the air was thick, and Rachel didn't waste time getting to the point. "I don't think this is working, Maria," Rachel said, her voice measured but firm. "The direction we're going in isn't clear. People are frustrated, and I don't think it's just about the workload. There's a disconnect. Nobody feels like they're part of something bigger anymore. It's like we're just moving in circles." Maria sat back in her chair, trying to absorb Rachel's words. Deep down, she knew she couldn't ignore the problem any longer, but hearing it out loud, especially from someone she had brought into the team, hit hard. "I know," Maria replied quietly. "I'm feeling it too. I thought I could manage it, but the pressure it's a lot more than I expected." Rachel didn't look sympathetic, but there was a flicker of understanding in her eyes. "You don't have to carry all of it by yourself. You're the leader, Maria, but that doesn't mean you can't ask for help. Maybe it's time to consider changing the team structure or bringing in someone who can take some of this weight off your shoulders." Maria didn't say anything at first. Her mind raced with thoughts of what Rachel had just suggested. She had been reluctant to let anyone else take charge. But deep down, Maria knew it was starting to become impossible for one person to shoulder it all. Later that evening, as Maria walked home from the office, her mind kept turning over Rachel's words. She had always prided herself on being a problem solver, the one who could rise to any challenge. But what if the real challenge was recognizing when she needed to step back and let others lead in areas where she was struggling? She arrived at her apartment, the familiar hum of city life in the background. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, and Maria pulled it out, seeing a message from Elon. It was short, but for the first time in days, it felt like more than just a passing note. "I've been thinking about our conversation. You've been doing incredible work, But don't forget that leadership isn't just about managing the work. It's also about managing the people. You're not alone in this. Maria smiled faintly, feeling a small spark of hope reignite. Maybe this wasn't the end, but rather the beginning of a new chapter. Maybe it was time to lean on the support around her, to build a team that could work together, rather than trying to carry the burden alone. The days after her conversation with Rachel had been a whirlwind. Maria found herself torn between holding on to the vision she had once believed in so strongly and the harsh reality that her leadership style needed a serious overhaul. There was no escaping the truth anymore. The team was on the edge of imploding, and the pressure was beginning to take its toll on her. That night, Maria couldn't shake the unease she felt. Her phone sat next to her on the couch, Elon's message still lingering in her inbox. Leadership isn't just about managing the work. It's about managing the people. The words echoed in her mind, making her realize that for all her focus on innovation and results, she had neglected the most important part of any venture: people. The next morning, as the sun rose over the city, Maria walked into the office with a renewed sense of purpose. She wasn't sure exactly what she was going to do, but she knew she couldn't keep going down the same path. The team needed a shift, and it had to start with her. The office was quiet when Maria arrived. The usual hustle of people moving between meetings and desks had slowed, almost as if the building itself was holding its breath. She walked past the workstations and paused for a moment, looking around at the faces of the team members who had been so eager to join her dream. Some of them were on their phones, others scribbling furiously on notebooks, but none of them looked truly engaged. The realization hit Maria hard. She had lost them. Somewhere along the way, her vision had become clouded by expectations, her own and others. She had wanted to push boundaries, to build something extraordinary, but in doing so, she had failed to bring her team along with her. She took a deep breath and called for an all-hands meeting. The conference room was filled with the low murmur of voices as team members shuffled in. Maria stood at the front, her hands clasped in front of her, her mind racing. She needed to say something that would shift the tone in the room. "Good morning, everyone," Maria began, her voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of resolve. "I know things haven't been easy lately. I've been reflecting a lot on what's been going wrong, and I need to be honest with all of you. I've been so focused on the bigger picture that I've overlooked some of the smaller, more important aspects of leadership. I've been pushing the team, thinking that pushing harder would lead to success, but I've realized that leadership isn't just about pushing, it's about lifting others up." She paused, allowing her words to sink in. She could see the team members exchanging glances, some looking skeptical, others intrigued. "I've heard the frustrations, and I've seen the cracks forming. We've become disconnected from each other, and I take responsibility for that," Maria continued, her voice growing stronger. "But I'm not giving up on this project or on this team. I believe in what we're doing, and I believe in all of you. So today, I want us to make a change. From this moment forward, we're going to shift how we approach this project. It's no longer going to be just about results. It's going to be about collaboration, trust, and supporting one another." The room was silent for a long moment. Maria felt the weight of their eyes on her, waiting for more. She had no idea if this would be enough to turn things around, but it was the only place to start. After the meeting, Maria felt a strange mix of relief and uncertainty. She had laid it all out on the table, admitting her faults and calling for a change. But would it work? Could she really turn things around? Later that afternoon, Elon called her. The sound of his voice was a welcome distraction from the tense atmosphere in the office. "Maria," he said, his tone warm and reassuring. "I've been thinking about what you said in your last message. You're right. You can't carry it all alone. And you don't have to. But it's good that you're recognizing that now. That's a big step." Maria smiled, grateful for his support. "Thank you, Elon. I'm still figuring it out, but I'm not giving up." "You don't need to figure it all out by yourself," Elon said, his voice firm yet understanding. "You've got a team for that. And remember, leadership is a journey, not a destination. Just keep moving forward, one step at a time." Maria nodded, feeling a renewed sense of clarity. She wasn't alone in this after all. The next few days were a blur of meetings, brainstorming sessions, and one-on-one conversations with each member of her team. Maria took the time to really listen to their concerns and ideas, encouraging them to voice what they needed to feel supported. Slowly but surely, she began to see cracks in the walls of frustration and doubt that had built up over the last few months. One evening, as Maria was walking home, she received another message from Elon. It was simple but meaningful. "You're doing great, Maria. Keep believing in yourself and the team." She smiled, her heart lightening as she looked out at the city skyline. She had a long way to go, but for the first time in a while, she felt like she might just make it. Maria's phone buzzed, jolting her from the deep thoughts that had consumed her for most of the morning. The message from Rachel was simple but packed with weight. "We need to talk. Urgently." Her heart skipped a beat. Ever since their conversation a few days ago, Maria had been doing everything she could to rebuild the team's trust. But what if this was another setback? What if all the work she'd put in so far was for nothing? She sat at her desk for a moment, gathering herself before dialing Rachel's number. The phone rang once, twice, then Rachel answered, her voice tight but professional. "Maria, we have a problem." Maria sat up straighter, her mind racing. "What's going on?" "I'm hearing rumors that some of the team isn't on board with the new direction," Rachel said. Her words clipped. "There's talk of some people wanting to leave. I know it's still early, but this is a big issue. If we lose key players now, it'll be a huge setback." Maria's stomach churned. Losing anyone else would be disastrous, especially now when they were finally starting to build some momentum. But at the same time, Maria couldn't ignore the feeling that this might be the moment she'd been waiting for, her true test as a leader. "I can't afford to lose anyone, Rachel. We've already come too far," Maria said, her voice steady but determined. "I'm going to talk to them. I'll fix this." Rachel didn't seem entirely convinced. "Maria, just be careful. They're frustrated, and you've got a lot of work to do to regain their trust." "I know," Maria replied, "but I'm ready to do whatever it takes." The next day, Maria called a meeting with the team. The room was tense as everyone filed in, their faces a mixture of frustration and curiosity. Maria took a deep breath as she looked around at the familiar faces. This was it. This was the moment that would define her leadership. "I want to be real with you all," Maria began, her voice calm but firm. "I know things have been difficult. I've made mistakes, and I haven't always been the leader you needed. But I'm here to tell you that I'm not giving up on this team, and I hope you won't either." The team exchanged uncertain glances. Maria could feel their eyes on her, waiting for something to change, for her to offer them something more than just words. "I've realized that leadership isn't about knowing all the answers. It's about creating an environment where we can all thrive together," she continued. "I know I haven't done that up until now, but I'm asking for your trust. We've been through a lot, but I believe in this team and I believe in each of you. I want to fix things, and I need your help." There was a long pause. No one spoke immediately. But then, to her surprise, Sarah, the one team member who had been the most vocal about her frustrations, stood up. "Maria," Sarah said, her voice softer than before, "I know you've been trying, but we've been waiting for something that shows us things are actually going to change. We need more than just words." Maria nodded, understanding the weight of Sarah's words. "I know," she said quietly, "and that's why we're making a change today. I'm opening the floor to each of you. Tell me what you need. I'm listening." The room fell silent again, but this time, the tension felt lighter. One by one, the team members began to speak up, voicing their concerns, their needs, and their ideas for improvement. Maria sat quietly, listening intently to each person. It wasn't easy hearing the criticisms, but it was necessary. If they were going to move forward, they all needed to be on the same page. After an hour of discussion, something shifted in the room. The walls of resistance began to crumble, replaced by a sense of understanding and shared purpose. For the first time in a long while, Maria felt a spark of hope. As the meeting came to a close, Sarah spoke again. "We're with you, Maria, but this is going to take time. We need consistency." Maria smiled, the weight on her shoulders lifting slightly. "Thank you. I'm committed to making this work, and I'll prove it to you every day. Let's do this together." The next few weeks were filled with hard work and long hours, but Maria could feel the shift. The team had slowly begun to trust her again, and the atmosphere in the office had become more collaborative and open. There were still challenges ahead, but they were facing them together, not as individuals pulling in different directions. One evening, as Maria sat in her office reviewing a proposal, she received a call from Elon. Her heart quickened as she answered. "Maria," Elon said, his voice calm but purposeful. "I've been hearing great things about how you've turned things around. I knew you had it in you." Maria felt a flush of pride. "Thank you, Elon. It hasn't been easy, but I think we're finally starting to find our stride." "I knew you were the right person for the job," he said, "and I have some good news for you. We've been following your progress, and I think it's time to take things to the next level. We'd like to bring you on for a bigger role in the project. Are you ready for it?" Maria's heart raced as she absorbed his words. This was the opportunity she had been waiting for. A chance to prove herself on a larger stage, to take everything she'd learned and apply it to something even bigger. "I'm ready," Maria said, her voice steady but filled with excitement. "Thank you for believing in me." As she hung up the phone, Maria looked out the window, her heart soaring. She had come a long way from the uncertainty and self-doubt that had plagued her when she first started. She had faced her fears, learned from her mistakes, and emerged stronger. Now, she had the chance to take everything she built and push it to new heights. But as she sat back in her chair, Maria knew this was just the beginning. The road ahead was still filled with challenges, but she was no longer afraid. She had her team, her vision, and a newfound sense of purpose. And that was all she needed. Maria stared at the phone screen, still absorbing Elon's words. The offer to join the project at a higher level was exactly what she had worked toward. But now that it was real, she felt an unfamiliar wave of doubt. She had spent so many years proving herself in smaller roles, working tirelessly to build trust and credibility. Now, with this new opportunity, the pressure would only grow. What if she wasn't ready? What if she failed? But as she sat there, thinking about all the risks, she realized that this was exactly the kind of challenge she had been seeking. A few weeks ago, she would have been paralyzed by fear, but now, she felt different. The last few weeks had taught her the power of resilience. She had rebuilt her team, found her voice, and was beginning to see that leadership was more than just making decisions. It was about inspiring people, including herself. She took a deep breath and dialed Elon's number. As the phone rang, she mentally prepared herself. The voice on the other end picked up after a few seconds. "Maria," Elon said warmly, "I'm glad you called back so quickly." "I've been thinking," Maria said, her words steady. "I'm ready. I want to take this next step." "That's great to hear," Elon replied. "We've been really impressed with your progress. I'm confident you're the right person for this role." Maria smiled at the validation, even though she knew there would be tough days ahead. "I won't let you down." "Good. We'll be in touch with more details soon. In the meantime, get ready for the next phase. We're going to make some big things happen." After the call ended, Maria sat in silence for a few moments, letting the excitement wash over her. There were still obstacles ahead, but she knew this was the path she had worked so hard for. The next few days were a blur as Maria focused on wrapping up her current projects. She wanted to leave the old role behind and enter her new position with a sense of finality. But every time she crossed paths with someone on the team, there was an energy in the air. They could sense the shift, and the support was palpable. At the end of the week, as she was gathering her things to leave for the day, Sarah approached her, holding a cup of coffee in one hand. "Hey, Maria," she said, a slight smile on her face. "I just wanted to say that I'm really proud of everything you've done. You've really turned things around, and I know it hasn't been easy." Maria smiled, touched by Sarah's words. "Thanks, Sarah. That means a lot. I couldn't have done it without your support." "I've got your back," Sarah said, her tone sincere. "And I know we're all rooting for you in this new role. You've earned it." Maria was surprised at how much that simple statement meant. Over the past few weeks, her team had become more than just co-workers. They had become friends, allies, and a source of strength. As Maria left the office for the last time as part of the old team, she felt a surge of gratitude. There were no shortcuts to success, but she knew every step along the way had been worth it. The following Monday, Maria walked into the new office, ready to take on her bigger role. The transition wasn't going to be easy, but she was no longer daunted by the challenge. Elon had been right about one thing. She had earned her place here, and now it was time to prove it. Her new office was sleek and modern, with large windows offering a view of the city. The air felt different, charged with potential. Maria took a moment to savor it, knowing this was only the beginning. Her first meeting was with Elon, who had arranged a strategy session for the team. As he welcomed everyone, his confidence was palpable, but Maria knew there was more beneath the surface. Even the most successful people had their own doubts, their own battles to fight. But Elon carried himself with a quiet certainty, and Maria respected that. As the meeting progressed, she contributed ideas and strategies, engaging with the team in a way that felt natural. Elon seemed pleased with her input, nodding approvingly after each of her suggestions. It was clear to Maria that this was the environment where she belonged. After the meeting, Elon pulled her aside. "Maria, that was great work in there," he said. "I can see how much you've grown. You have a real gift for bringing clarity to complex situations. You'll do well here." Maria nodded, feeling the weight of his praise. "Thank you. I won't let you down." Elon's eyes gleamed. "I know you won't." Later that day, as Maria reflected on the meeting, a small but significant moment stood out to her. At one point, when the team was brainstorming ideas, she had suggested a slightly unconventional approach. Normally, she would have hesitated, worried about how her ideas might be received. But this time, she didn't hold back. Her suggestion was met with enthusiastic support, and it sparked a new direction for the project. That was when it hit her. She had found her voice. Maria spent the rest of the day preparing for the next phase of the project, but her thoughts kept returning to that moment of clarity. She had earned her seat at the table, and now she was ready to take on whatever came next. The following week, Maria was given the responsibility of leading a major initiative that would shape the direction of the project. It was a big leap, but she was ready. With her team behind her and Elon's mentorship, she was confident she could succeed. As the days passed, Maria's confidence grew. She became more comfortable in her new role, and the team responded positively to her leadership. They respected her for the way she had turned things around, but more than that, they trusted her. Maria had come a long way from the days when she had been just another worker in the office, fighting to prove herself. Now, she was the one making the decisions, driving the project forward. And with each step, she knew this was only the beginning. Maria sat at her desk, the glow of her computer screen casting a soft light on her face. The project she had been handed was massive, more than anything she'd ever worked on before. The pressure was mounting. She could feel it in every email, every meeting, every moment of hesitation. It had been 3 weeks since she had stepped into her new role, and already, she could see the cracks starting to form. She had grown comfortable with the team, but now, the real test was how well she could handle the weight of the decisions she had to make. Every choice felt monumental, every strategy vital to the project's success. Her team was watching her more closely than ever. They had seen how she'd risen through the ranks, but now they were waiting for her to prove that she could sustain it. Maria exhaled slowly, trying to calm her nerves. She had come so far, but now it seemed like the road ahead was even steeper than before. Her phone buzzed, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was a text from Elon. "Elon, how's everything going with the project? Let me know if you need anything. I believe in you." Maria stared at the message for a moment, feeling both comforted and overwhelmed. Elon's support meant the world to her. He had been a guiding figure, showing her the ropes and giving her the confidence to trust herself. But now, as the stakes grew higher, she wasn't sure if she could live up to his faith in her. She replied with a quick message. "Maria, I appreciate it. Things are moving along, but it's a lot to juggle. I'll make sure it's a success." With the text sent, Maria refocused on the tasks at hand. There was no time to dwell on the uncertainty. She had a team to lead, a project to manage, and no room for self-doubt. Later that afternoon, Maria gathered the team for their weekly progress meeting. She stood at the front of the conference room, trying to mask the tension she felt inside. The room was filled with bright minds, and she could see the expectation in their eyes. "All right, team," she began, forcing a calmness into her voice. "We're making great strides, but there's still a lot to do. We need to stay focused and keep pushing forward. Let's go over the current priorities." As she spoke, Maria could see the faces of her team members light up. They were confident in her, and that gave her the energy to keep going. But as the meeting progressed, she couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was off. "Maria," Sarah said, raising her hand during a break in the discussion, "I wanted to bring up a concern I've been hearing from a few people. There's a growing sense of frustration with the pace of some decisions. People feel like things are moving slower than expected." Maria felt her stomach tighten. She had expected some pushback, but hearing it out loud was different. "I understand the concerns," she replied, trying to keep her tone neutral. "But we have to be careful with the direction we're taking. Rushing decisions now could compromise the entire project." Sarah nodded, but Maria could see the doubt in her eyes. It wasn't just Sarah. The rest of the team was growing restless. Maria had worked so hard to earn their trust, but now she wasn't sure if she could hold on to it. That evening, Maria stayed late in the office, poring over reports and data, trying to figure out how to regain control. She knew the team needed reassurance, but she also needed to make sure the strategy was sound. Every number, every chart, every decision was critical. Her mind kept returning to Elon's words, his belief in her. She couldn't let him down. The door to her office creaked open, and she turned to see Sarah standing there. "Hey," she said softly, "you've been in here for hours. I thought you could use a break." Maria smiled faintly. "I'm just trying to get everything in order. There's a lot riding on this." Sarah walked in and took a seat across from Maria. "I know," she said, "but you can't do it all alone. You've got a team here who wants to help. We all believe in you. We just need some direction, and honestly, we need to know that you've got a plan for how we're going to handle the pressure." Maria leaned back in her chair, the weight of Sarah's words sinking in. "I'm not sure I have a solid plan," she admitted, the vulnerability in her voice surprising even herself, "but I'm doing the best I can." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "We know, but sometimes it's okay to ask for help, Maria. You don't have to be the one with all the answers all the time. You're our leader, yes, but that doesn't mean you have to carry the entire burden on your own." The words felt like a weight lifting off her chest. Maria had spent so much time trying to prove she was capable of handling everything herself that she had forgotten the power of teamwork. "Thanks, Sarah," she said, a small smile breaking through her exhaustion. "I needed to hear that." The following day, Maria took a step back and reassessed her approach. She called a meeting with the entire team to discuss their concerns openly. It was time to be transparent, to admit that she didn't have all the answers, but that she was willing to listen and adapt. As the team began to speak up, sharing their thoughts and suggestions, Maria found herself listening more than talking. She realized that they had valuable insights, and together, they could overcome the challenges ahead. The meeting ended on a positive note, with everyone feeling more united and motivated. Maria had learned a vital lesson. Leadership wasn't about being perfect. It was about guiding the team through tough times and knowing when to lean on others. That evening, after the team had gone home, Maria sat alone in her office, reflecting on the day's events. She was exhausted, but for the first time in a while, she felt a sense of peace. She wasn't alone in this journey anymore. She had a team that supported her, and together, they were stronger. As the phone buzzed again, Maria glanced at the screen. It was another message from Elon. "Elon, you're doing great. Keep pushing. I know you'll get through this." Maria smiled, feeling the weight of his belief in her. Maybe the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but with the support of her team and Elon's guidance, she was ready for whatever challenges came her way. Maria woke up to the sound of her alarm blaring, the early morning sun barely peeking through the blinds. Another long day lay ahead, but this time, there was a noticeable shift in her mindset. After the meeting with the team yesterday, she felt lighter, more focused. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't dreading the tasks that awaited her. As she got ready for work, she replayed Sarah's words in her mind. "You don't have to carry the burden alone." It had resonated with her deeply. Maria realized that leadership wasn't about shouldering everything by yourself. It was about knowing how to lead and when to ask for help. Her team was a resource, not a responsibility. But even with her newfound clarity, Maria couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get much harder. She had seen how the pressure of the project had started to affect her team's morale, and while they seemed more united after their honest discussion, the true test had yet to come. By midday, the first signs of tension began to surface. A key vendor had failed to meet a deadline, and the production schedule was now off track. Maria's phone rang continuously, her email inbox flooded with urgent requests and complaints. The weight of it all felt suffocating, but she pushed through, responding as best as she could. Maria, her assistant, Josh, called from the doorway of her office. "We need you in the conference room. There's an issue with the prototype testing." Maria stood up immediately, her stomach tightening. This was the moment she had been dreading. The moment where the smallest issue could set off a chain of events that would derail the entire project. She followed Josh to the conference room, her mind racing with the possibilities. As she walked in, she saw her team gathered around a table, their faces tense. Sarah, the lead engineer, was standing at the whiteboard, scribbling notes. The room fell silent as Maria entered, and everyone turned their attention to her. "Here's the situation," Sarah began, her voice steady but tinged with concern. "We've hit a significant roadblock with the testing phase. The prototype isn't performing as expected, and the results are far from what we anticipated. If we don't fix this, we're looking at a delay of several weeks. That means missing our launch window." Maria's heart sank. This was the last thing they needed. The pressure to deliver on time had already been immense, and now, with a technical failure on top of everything else, the entire project was at risk. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. "Okay," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Let's break this down. What's causing the issue with the prototype? Do we know yet?" Sarah nodded, pointing to the screen behind her. "It seems like there's a flaw in the software integration. We've tried troubleshooting, but it's not yielding any results. We might need to go back to the drawing board." Maria's mind raced as she tried to think through the problem. This wasn't just a minor setback, it was a potential disaster. If they couldn't resolve it quickly, the whole project could fall apart. "All right," Maria said after a long pause. "We need to bring in our best minds to solve this. Sarah, I want you to assemble a task force to dig into the software issue and get it sorted. Everyone else, focus on making sure the rest of the project is on track. We can't afford any more delays." Her team nodded, but Maria could see the doubt in their eyes. They had all been working at full capacity for months, and this problem was just one more weight added to an already heavy load. Later that day, as the team worked tirelessly to troubleshoot the software issue, Maria received a message from Elon. "Elon, how are things going on your end? Any major roadblocks I should be aware of?" Maria hesitated for a moment before replying. She knew Elon wanted updates, but she didn't want to worry him unnecessarily. Still, she couldn't hide the reality of the situation. "Maria, we've hit a bit of a snag with the prototype testing. There's a major issue with the software integration, and we're working on resolving it. But if it's not fixed soon, it could delay the entire project." The reply came almost instantly. "Elon, understood. I know this isn't easy, but I believe in your ability to solve this. Let me know if you need anything from my end." Maria felt a sense of reassurance from his message. Elon's faith in her had always been a driving force, but this time, she couldn't help but feel the weight of the responsibility even more acutely. He wasn't just offering support. He was counting on her to make this work. As the evening wore on, Maria found herself alone in her office, staring at the progress reports. The software team had made some headway, but it was clear the solution wasn't going to come quickly. She could feel the tension building, and she knew it wasn't just the team that was under pressure. It was her as well. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Maria looked up to see Sarah standing in the doorway. "Can we talk?" Sarah asked, her voice quieter than usual. Maria gestured for her to come in. "Of course, what's on your mind?" Sarah stepped inside and closed the door behind her. "I know you're juggling a lot right now, Maria, and I just wanted to check in. How are you really doing?" Maria paused. She hadn't realized how much of herself she had been burying beneath the stress of the project. The truth was, she was struggling. She had never felt the weight of leadership so acutely. The responsibility to the team, to Elon, to the project, it was overwhelming. "I'm holding it together," Maria said slowly, meeting Sarah's eyes. "But it's harder than I thought." I don't want to let anyone down. Not you, not the team, and certainly not Elon. Sarah gave her a soft smile. You're not alone in this. We've got your back, Maria. We'll get through this together. Maria felt a sense of relief wash over her. Sarah's words were a reminder that she didn't have to carry the weight of it all alone. The team was with her, and together, they would overcome the challenges ahead. The day had arrived. Maria felt the weight of it in her bones. After weeks of non-stop work, meetings, late nights, and early mornings, the project was finally nearing its final phase. The team had worked tirelessly, adjusting and reworking every detail. They had come so far, but now, with the deadline looming and the final test set for tomorrow, the stakes were higher than ever. The prototype was finally ready. The software issues from earlier had been resolved, but there was still one major hurdle: making sure everything came together flawlessly during the final presentation. One glitch, one mistake, and the project would fail. Everything Maria had fought for could come crashing down. She stood in front of the large conference table in the team's main meeting room, the same table where so many crucial decisions had been made. The room was now filled with her team, each of them looking tired but determined. There was no turning back. "All right, everyone," Maria began, her voice steady despite the anxiety creeping up on her. "This is it. We've come a long way, but tomorrow is the true test. We've got one shot at this. We need to ensure that everything is perfect." Elon's face flashed in her mind, his calm yet confident expression as he had offered his unwavering support. She had the chance to prove herself, not just to him, but to everyone who had doubted her. This was the culmination of all her hard work. Sarah, standing at the front of the room, nodded. "We've done all the prep we can. All that's left is to make sure the system functions under pressure. We need flawless execution tomorrow, no room for error." Maria took a deep breath and looked around the room at her team. "I know this hasn't been easy. We've faced setbacks, but we've made it through because we've worked together. Now, let's show everyone what we're capable of. We're ready for this." The hours leading up to the final presentation were filled with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Maria had spent the morning reviewing the data, running through the final checks, and ensuring that the team had everything they needed for the big day. By the time the afternoon rolled around, she felt the tension building in her chest. Just before the final presentation, Maria received another message from Elon. "Elon, I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Whatever happens, remember you've already shown everyone what true leadership looks like. I'm proud of everything you've done." Maria smiled at the message, feeling a surge of gratitude. Elon had always been supportive, but this message was different. It wasn't just about the project, it was about her. He saw her as more than just a team member. He saw her as a leader. But despite the reassurance, she couldn't help but feel the pressure mounting. Tomorrow would decide everything. If the prototype worked, it would mark a breakthrough not just for the project, but for Maria's future as well. The morning of the presentation arrived, and the team gathered at the designated venue. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation. The executives, stakeholders, and members of Elon's team were already seated, waiting for the demonstration to begin. Maria's team was in place, ready to make their mark. As Maria stood in front of the crowd, she felt a wave of nervous energy. This was it, the moment that could change everything. She cleared her throat and addressed the audience. "Thank you all for being here. Today, we're not just presenting a project, we're presenting the future. This prototype has been through rigorous testing, and we believe it has the potential to reshape the industry. We're ready to show you what we've built." She gestured to Sarah, who began the demonstration. The screen behind them displayed the live feed of the prototype in action, and Maria held her breath. Everything had to go according to plan. The team's hard work, the countless hours spent refining every detail, it all came down to this. For the first few minutes, everything went smoothly. The system responded quickly, the software was stable, and the prototype was performing as expected. Maria's heart began to settle as she watched the audience react positively. But then, just as the demonstration entered its final phase, there was a slight flicker. A minor glitch, but a glitch nonetheless. The room fell silent. Maria's stomach dropped. "Just a moment," Sarah said, quickly working to resolve the issue. Maria could see the tension in her team's faces, but they didn't falter. They worked swiftly, troubleshooting the problem on the spot. The audience shifted in their seats, murmuring amongst themselves. The glitch was fixed within minutes, but Maria knew that even the smallest hiccup could tarnish the entire presentation. She had to remain composed. When the demonstration resumed, the prototype worked flawlessly. The audience seemed impressed by the quick recovery, but Maria knew they had seen the glitch. It was hard to shake off the feeling that it had cost them something. As the demonstration concluded, Maria stepped forward to address the room once more. "We appreciate your patience," she said, her voice calm but firm. "What we've shown you today is just a glimpse of what's possible. We're committed to refining this product further and ensuring that it's ready for full-scale deployment. The future is full of challenges, but we're ready to face them head-on." The final presentation had ended, and Maria stood in the back of the room, watching as the executives and Elon's team discussed the results. The room was alive with conversation, but Maria couldn't focus on any of it. She replayed every moment of the presentation in her mind, wondering if the glitch had been too much of a setback. Then, as if on cue, Elon approached her. "Maria," he said with a smile, "that was impressive. You handled the situation under pressure like a true leader. The glitch didn't matter. What mattered was how quickly you and your team adapted. That's the kind of leadership I value." Maria exhaled, feeling the weight of the past few weeks lift off her shoulders. It wasn't perfect, but they had done it. She had done it. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without my team. We worked together, and that's what made all the difference." Elon nodded. "Exactly. And that's why I'm proud of you." As they spoke, Maria realized something profound. This wasn't just the culmination of a project. It was the beginning of something much bigger. She had proven herself not just to Elon, but to herself. She had led, adapted, and overcome every obstacle. The following days were a blur for Maria. The high of the presentation was still fresh in her mind, but as the dust settled, reality began to set in. The team had received positive feedback, but she could tell the executives were still analyzing every detail. It wasn't enough to simply have a successful demo. They wanted results, long-term, scalable, and impactful results. Maria found herself back at the office, staring at her computer screen late into the night. The emails and messages from potential investors and partners piled up, each with its own set of demands and expectations. As much as she wanted to bask in the success, there was no time to rest. She scrolled through one of Elon's messages, which had arrived just a few hours ago. "Elon, I wanted to let you know that we're moving forward with the next phase. We're bringing in some of the brightest minds to help scale this. But I think you've proven yourself to be one of those minds, Maria. Let's talk soon." Maria's heart raced as she read the words. She had proven herself, but what did this next phase mean? She knew Elon was a man of action, but was she ready for what that might entail? The thought of scaling the project, making a mark on a global stage, both thrilled and terrified her. She wasn't just leading a project anymore. She was stepping into the spotlight, and the pressure was only going to increase from here. The following week, Maria was invited to a private meeting with Elon and a select group of other key figures. The atmosphere in the room was intense, full of energy, ideas, and ambition. The stakes were much higher now. It was no longer just about finishing the project. They were talking about transforming the entire industry. Elon was in his element. He spoke passionately about the future of tech and the role their project could play in it. But for the first time, Maria felt a sense of disconnect. She wasn't sure if she was ready for what was coming. She had been a leader on her team, but leading in this high-stakes, global conversation was a different beast entirely. After the meeting, Elon approached her. "You're quiet today," he said, a hint of concern in his voice. "Something on your mind?" Maria paused, unsure of how to express what she was feeling. "I guess. I'm just thinking about the next steps. This project, it's bigger than anything I've ever been a part of, and I'm not sure I'm ready to handle it on this scale." Elon smiled and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Maria, that's exactly why you're the right person for this. You're here because you have vision, you have the ability to adapt, and you have the courage to take risks. That's what it takes to change the game." "But," Maria hesitated, her doubts creeping in. "What if I fail? What if I can't live up to the expectations? Elon's expression softened. Failure isn't the end. It's the beginning of learning. Every great leader has faced moments of doubt, but they push through them. I believe in you, Maria. And so do the people here. You've already proven what you can do. Maria nodded, feeling the weight of his words. There was truth in them. She had already faced challenges that seemed impossible and emerged stronger on the other side. But this felt different. The magnitude of what they were building was overwhelming, and she wasn't sure she had it in her to carry such a massive responsibility. Let's take this one step at a time, Elon continued. We don't need to have it all figured out right now. What we need is someone who's willing to rise to the occasion. And I've seen you do that time and time again. Maria looked at him, feeling a surge of determination. All right, I'm in. In the weeks that followed, Maria immersed herself in the project with renewed focus. The pressure was immense, but the reward was even greater. She worked closely with engineers, developers, and visionaries from around the world, pushing the boundaries of what they had already accomplished. As the project began to scale, Maria realized that she was no longer just part of the team. She was leading it. Her decision-making, her strategy, and her ability to keep the team united under intense pressure became the driving force behind the project's continued success. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Maria stood by the window of the office, looking out at the city below. The lights twinkled in the distance, each one representing a life, a story, a dream. Maria had come so far, but there was still so much left to do. She glanced at her phone, checking the time. It was late, too late for a call, but she couldn't resist. She dialed Elon's number. "Hey, Maria," he answered, his voice calm but warm. "How's everything going?" "I was just thinking," Maria said, her voice filled with quiet reflection. "It's been a long road, but I'm starting to feel like this is just the beginning. Like there's so much more to come." Elon chuckled. "That's the thing about success. It's always a step in the journey, never the end. You've got the heart of a true innovator, Maria, and I'm glad you're on this journey with us." She smiled, feeling a sense of pride swelling in her chest. The road ahead was uncertain, and the challenges would only grow, but she was ready for whatever came next. She wasn't just fighting for success anymore. She was fighting for a future that was bigger than herself. Opening sentence. They say the higher you climb, the further you fall, but what if you never stop climbing? Maria's phone buzzed incessantly as she entered her office early the next morning. The steady hum of the city below seemed distant as she watched the notifications stack up on her screen. Calls, emails, messages, each one more urgent than the last. The weight of the responsibility she carried was beginning to feel heavier. She had just closed one deal, wrapped up another presentation, and made it through a series of strategy meetings. But there was always more to do. Always someone wanting something from her. And as much as she wanted to step back and breathe, she couldn't. There was no time for rest. Her mind buzzed with thoughts as she opened an email from Elon. "Elon, Maria, I need you to come to the headquarters for an important meeting. Bring your thoughts on the next steps for scaling. I think we're close to something huge." Her stomach flipped as she read the message. The word huge had a way of making everything feel a little more intense. She'd been working nonstop for months now, but whatever this meeting was about, it was going to take things to another level. She wasn't sure she was ready for it, but she knew there was no turning back now. Later that afternoon, Maria found herself walking through the sleek, modern halls of the company's headquarters. The building was imposing, all glass and steel, symbolic of the world-changing technology they were building inside. But even as she walked through the corridors, she couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled in her chest. The elevator doors opened to reveal Elon and a few other key figures from the company. Elon greeted her with a firm handshake and a smile, though his eyes betrayed a hint of something more serious than usual. "Maria, good to see you," Elon said as he led her to a conference room. "We've got a lot to cover. Let's get to it." Maria followed him, trying to steady her nerves. She had been part of this journey from the beginning, but now, it felt like the stakes were higher than ever. As they sat down, Elon began talking about the next phase of the project, scaling it to a global level, partnering with major corporations, and even getting the technology into government's hands. The sheer scale of the plans made Maria's head spin. "We need someone who can handle this," Elon said, his voice steady. "Someone who can keep all the pieces moving at once. And I think you're that person, Maria. You've proven it every step of the way." Maria's pulse quickened. The pressure was mounting. She wasn't just leading a small team anymore. She was being asked to oversee something that could change the course of the future. Her role had expanded beyond what she had ever imagined. "What exactly do you need me to do?" Maria asked, trying to mask the uncertainty in her voice. Elon leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. "We're talking about going international, Maria. We're going to need someone who understands both the tech and the people behind it. We're talking about bringing in investors, building new partnerships, and scaling the product in a way that's never been done before. You're going to be the one pulling all the strings. Can you handle that?" Maria's heart skipped a beat. She had always been ambitious, but this was something else entirely. The idea of leading such a massive project both terrified and exhilarated her. She had come this far, but could she really handle everything Elon was asking of her? "I'll do my best," Maria replied, her voice steady despite the storm of thoughts in her head. "I'll give it everything I've got." Elon gave her a smile that bordered on pride. "I know you will. That's why I'm counting on you." The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Maria's schedule was packed with meetings, presentations, and trips to various parts of the world to meet with potential partners and investors. She was pulled in every direction, working around the clock to keep everything moving forward. The pressure was suffocating, but there was no room for weakness. She found herself back at the office late one night, reviewing contracts and projections when her phone rang. It was Elon. "Maria, I need you to come by the lab tomorrow morning," he said. "We're about to hit a milestone, and I need you here to see it." Maria's mind raced as she tried to process the urgency in his voice. Another milestone? What could it be? She had no idea, but she couldn't afford to miss it. The team had been working tirelessly, but this felt different. Something big was about to happen. The next morning, Maria arrived at the lab to find Elon and several of the lead engineers gathered around a large screen, watching as data flowed in. The tension in the room was palpable. "We're getting real-time feedback on the system," Elon said, his voice tinged with excitement. "This could change everything." Maria stood there, watching the screen as numbers and figures shifted with remarkable speed. It was as if the technology they had created was coming alive, adapting and evolving in real time. The implications were staggering. What they were building could potentially change entire industries, from healthcare to education to transportation. But as she stood there, the excitement of the moment was tempered by a nagging feeling in her gut. The scale of what they were doing was overwhelming. It wasn't just about innovation anymore. It was about global impact, and with that came responsibility. "What's next?" Maria asked, her voice steady, despite the whirlwind of thoughts in her mind. Elon turned to her, his eyes sharp. "Now, we scale. Now, we change the world." The weight of his words settled heavily on her shoulders. She had always known they were working on something groundbreaking, but this moment, this was the realization of everything they had worked for. The future was unfolding in real time, and Maria was right in the middle of it. If you like this story and want to see more content like this, please support us by subscribing to the channel. Your support motivates us to create more inspiring and impactful stories that resonate with our community. Together, we can continue to shine a light on important issues and encourage conversations that lead to real change. Thank you for being part of this journey with us.